at its basic elements, engineering is solving problems. I just really enjoy solving problems. I mean, I was always, I was the kid with doing all the puzzles. I was, always challenging myself in that area growing up. And I think that's a big part of the excitement of engineering. And I think that's something that we have to rekindle in today's youth. I don't see as many of them moving into the area as we need in this country.
You have an incredibly dynamic and complex role at DuPont, but in 3 sentences, if someone came up to you, what job description would you give yourself?
Chief cheerleader, chief questioner, and chief listener. A big part of my job is really listening to the marketplace, to our people, understanding the reality of the situation they face, asking tough questions, trying to figure out where that next opportunity or challenge might come from. And then really, giving them the momentum, morale, cheering them on to really make the progress we're making.
As you've navigated your diverse career, what, if you look back to your early days as a woman ascending in leadership, was one of the tougher leadership lessons you had to learn?
In the middle 90s, I was the first woman asked to lead a major business for DuPont. That was my dream job. It was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of assets around the world, a lot of people, a lot of interesting challenges. And our then chairman came to me about 4 years into it in the late 90s and asked me to start a new business, start with nothing, create a service-oriented business within DuPont. We didn't have any service-oriented businesses. Everyone, including my family, my peers, told me no. You can say no to the chairman at least once, maybe not twice, but at least once. That it was more career derailing than it was really in the mainstream. And I took the challenge because I really felt that I would grow more by building something, by having to assemble a team from scratch, by having to figure out the market, what our right to win was.
What surprised you most when you took on this new challenge?
It was the ability to deal with ambiguity. So the world's a changing place, but in large, complex organizations, most of the people are looking for just what they need to do to get done, certainty, right? And when you're starting a business, there's not a lot of certainty. And so you have to deal with how do you motivate people when the answer is not clear? How do you get the answer? How do you use detailed data, metrics to really understand the impact you're having or not? I appreciated how important that was in a rapidly changing environment.
How did you develop a thick skin along the way?
You got to suck it up, right? You have to listen when it is a tough message. And you have to, I think my engineering background helped. Okay, this is a problem, right? And so how do I deal with this? What do I need to do personally? How do I need to grow personally? How do I need to engage with people differently? Maybe my engagement style isn't appropriate for where, for this situation. And I've had some really good mentors, some people I've worked for during my career that really held that mirror up and said, this is how others see you. It may not be how you see yourself. And I think that really did help me develop as a leader.
Was it hard when they held that mirror up?
Yeah, not speaking to them for days. I mean, but you get over it, right? And because you realize deep in their heart, they were really looking for me to develop to my potential. This wasn't about tearing down. This was to understand reality. And I really think those were probably the most impactful types of development I had in my career.
How has being a mother, being a spouse, made you better at your job, made you better CEO?
I think it taught me much more patience today than I had 20 or 30 years ago. I think most importantly, it taught me to listen. Kids don't have to do what you tell them, and don't, by and large, many occasions. And I think sometimes instead of just telling them louder, you got to listen and understand their world, which is different than really my world. That was a really important part of the process that really helped me develop different skills when even engaging my own organization.
What was the hardest thing for you to sacrifice during the process, recognizing there's only 24 hours in the day and recognizing there's competing demands where sometimes something has to give?
I don't look at it as sacrifice, I look at it as choice, right? The one nice thing about the corner office is you do get to control a lot of your schedule, not all of it, but a lot of it. But I attended a lot of the kids' sporting events. I showed up for parent-teacher conferences. We were able to schedule it out in a way that I had a goal in terms of what percentage I hit, and there's nothing like my team. They were going to help me do that. And so it meant that I left for a game and came back and worked a little later in the evening. But I think you have to do that. That was my, that was my release, my ability to then kind of put in the hard hours, do the travel that you have to do. The travel is just absolutely amazing. But if you have that, make those choices in the right way, I think you can be very satisfied with where it turns out.
What was the most powerful piece of advice someone gave you in terms of how you reshaped your approach as a leader, your approach in your career?
Well, I'd go back to what my dad told me years ago when I was little and had to work for his, as in elementary school, watering the plants, whether at our house, my grandmother's house, or wherever. And he kept saying, if you don't water it, it's going to die. If you don't water it, it's going to die. And it's sort of like, yeah, okay, fine. And you don't really understand that's just, might be true of plants. It's true of people. It's true of organizations. And I think you have to really understand what an organization needs or what a person needs from a development standpoint. And that takes time, it takes patience, and takes understanding. And I think that's one of those statements that's just stayed with me for my whole life.
For you as a leader, as a mother, as an influencer in your community, what would you like your legacy to be?
I'm a big believer in STEM education, engineering, science, math, technology. And I don't think we, as a country, have done very well there in the last few decades. And so if I can use my position in the community, in the science community, my position with universities, and more importantly, elementary schools and high schools, to get more kids interested in science and math and get more kids, only 14% of our undergraduate students graduate with a degree in engineering or science. In the EU, it's 24%. In places like Korea and China, it's in the mid-40%. And so we really need, if we are going to continue our growth as a country, we need to be producing more science and engineering students. And I think that's an area that I'm going to pour energy into.